So I want to pivot to a game that meant a lot to me, and it was not Fort Valley, but it was Division II versus FCS, and it was Clark Atlanta coming back to beat Bethune Cookman 38-37 in a game that honestly I will never forget. We had the privilege of having that game be broadcasted on HBCU Go, because games like that don't get broadcasted even to this day. Like, there are legendary games even within the past couple of seasons that either aren't broadcasted or broadcasted terribly. So the fact that with multiple cameras and a scoreboard, we can see the score and sideline reporters and crispy visuals, we were able to see a game-winning field goal kick that put Clark Atlanta over Bethune Cookman, even though Bethune Cookman has not been that great in recent years. They're a Division I football program. And we know, Arielle, we've talked about it for years on this show, where we talk about how people look down on Division II programs. And they just think, oh, well, the best Division II programs, it doesn't matter if they're the best. Division I, just the classification, the fact that we're in the SWAC or the MEAC or this bigger conference, this bigger league, we're just so much better than the Division II institutions. It made me feel so good to see Clark Atlanta, especially on head coach Teddy Keaton, who I've gotten the chance to converse with on the SIAC talk spaces that we do on Twitter. Of course, it's now called X. And we do that every Sunday. And he comes on, he'll break the game down, he'll give his thoughts on what's going on in HBCU football. Just seeing him leave Allen University, who last year they were 7-3. And then you come to Clark Atlanta and you have these expansive resources, a school that is growing under Dr. French, Atlanta, Georgia, that is ripe with a bunch of athletic talent, not just in football, but in all the sports, but especially in football. And he comes through. Clark Atlanta does not have a football pedigree. Clark Atlanta consistently and always has sort of been getting beat down. I mean, they've had years of success, but they are not a Tuskegee. They're not a Fort Valley. They're not an Albany State. They're not a Benedict, where Benedict has seen success in recent years. Even with great coaches like Willie Slater, he came through. He was successful at Tuskegee, one of the best coaches in HBCU history. He comes to Clark Atlanta. He couldn't get them to win, and he got fired midway through last season. So you have a Teddy Keaton with this offense philosophy, this air raid style. You got David Wright, the SIAC MVP last year, and he's just this amazing quarterback that throws the ball around the yard, makes it happen. And you're wondering, like, can they overcome the history? Can they really bring Clark Atlanta back to prominence? And they are. They're 3-0-1, and the only reason why they're not 4-0 is because of lightning, because they would have beaten Florida Memorial. They would have beaten Florida Memorial. It was going to be a great game. It was going to be a shootout, but they were going to beat Florida Memorial because Clark Atlanta finds a way to win. But they're 3-0. They haven't lost a game. They beat Fort Valley to start the year 45-42 in a shootout. Allen University, Teddy Keaton and David Wright's former institution, comes to Clark Atlanta, comes to that red field, and Clark Atlanta beats them. In Florida Memorial, they have their game against them. Of course, 3-0-1, right? It was a tie because it was 28-28. Then you're expected to lose to Bethune Cookman because, like I said last week, Arielle, it's a talent disparity ultimately when we talk about Division I institutions and Division II institutions. I understand why people think, oh, well, this good Division II team is not going to win. We have more scholarships. So that means you have more scholarships. You have more talent on that roster. And like I said last week, there is talent on Bethune Cookman's team. Just because they're not all that great right now or they're not winning doesn't mean that there aren't talented players. I think that it goes to scheme. I think that it goes to matchups. I think that ultimately goes to decision making, both on the coaching staff and on those players, because Clark Atlanta wouldn't have been in position to win had it not been for a late penalty that put them in position to get closer and then get that field goal. I don't think Bethune Cookman has bad players. I think it's the system. I think it's the scheme. But to see Clark Atlanta go down 28-7 in that first quarter, I did turn the game off. Not because I was disgusted. I was going to come back to it regardless. But it was other games that were on. So I'm like, this game's probably going to get out of hand. They're still good. SIAC players coming up. I think that Clark Atlanta can make a run towards the SIAC championship. But then I turn back and I see a Clark Atlanta team that's still fighting. They're still trying. 34-14, Arielle, going into halftime. Then what we see Clark Atlanta dominate Bethune Cookman. 24-3 in the second half. And we're talking about the defense, the secondary is doing what they need to do. That defensive line isn't really getting pressure. They can score, but can they defend? They held Division I Bethune Cookman University with these FBS transfers, these group of 5 transfers that are on Bethune Cookman's team, held them to 3 points, held them to a field goal as they scored 24 points to come back. That says a lot to me. That says resiliency. That says good coaching. That says adjustments. But that says that the Teddy Keaton offensive system works. And you get to this point where they go down, David Wright scoring all these touchdowns, and the defense, they're stepping up in a way I didn't even see against Fort Valley. They're stepping up. They're sacking the quarterback. They're getting the pressure. They're causing him to throw the ball before he's ready to. And I was like, are they really going to win this game? Because I'm like, these type of games, this is when you lose 38-35. You don't win this game. It's a good moral victory, even though they swear, moral victories don't matter. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Games like this, if I'm playing Georgia and I'm coaching against Georgia and we lose by 3 points, you think I'm going to be like, oh, man, we lost. I competed against Georgia. I competed against so-and-so. You know what I mean? Like that matters. So it's like typically, you lose these games like that. But the fact that they were able to get that ball back, savvy clock management, and then you get that ball down the field, and then you don't go for the Hail Mary. You don't go for the touchdown. You go for the field goal, a long field goal. And a freshman kicker makes the final field goal? That's legendary. I honestly was like, I am blessed to have the opportunity to watch that game because those are the games you hear about. Listen, we didn't pick Clark Atlanta. We picked Bethune Cookman because we want to protect our picks and we want to be right. So I had a feeling Bethune Cookman has not been playing all that well this year. And Clark Atlanta has been figuring something out with how they're airing the ball out. But I'm not even mad I was wrong. I'm just happy I saw it. I'm happy I got the chance to witness it. I have the game downloaded just in case it goes away. Okay? Like, I'm going to watch that game forever. All right? That's probably one of my favorite football games of all time. And I am 10 toes behind Clark Atlanta. I think in the SIAC is going to be Fort Valley versus Clark Atlanta in the SIAC championship. That's what I think. But Clark Atlanta is doing something amazing. Teddy Keaton is doing something amazing. David Wright is doing something amazing. That coaching staff, that team, and the freshman kicker. I gotta say his name, Leonardo Cabrera. Leonardo Cabrera hit that 55-yard field goal. That JC Justin Tucker, my guy Justin Tucker can't get hit a field goal to save his life right now. He a legend. Okay. Hi, Ravens, listen. I know folks like to draft HBCU players, but Mr. Cabrera is going to be available in about a couple years, okay? Because he hitting NFL field goals, all right? That's all I'm saying, Arielle. It was an amazing game. Listen, Clark Atlanta, I'm proud of them. Bethune Cookman, they have some work to do. Listen, watching that game, Arielle, I was like, is Ed Reed still available? At this point, but it was an amazing game, honestly.
They're done with Ed Reed. That whole fiasco right there. Just to your point, I mean, this is something I chose Bethune Cookman too, but like I said last week, I would not be mad if Clark Atlanta won. I would love this for them. And like I said last week, they are having a turnaround of a season. Bethune Cookman, for them to be 0-4 this early kind of in the season, we're about to get midway, but still have an early point. Last season, they finished 2-6. So now they're starting 0-4, and they still have big competition on the way. The Clark Atlanta should have been one of their easy games. This actually should have been a 1-3, and now Clark Atlanta is 3-1. And we just at my station at Scripps, we just did a special, a package about up and coming D2 HBCUs. And they had decided that we are going to choose Morehouse. We're going to choose Morehouse in their coach. He's a retired NFL legend. He's trying to bring back their good season. What they should have done was looking at Clark Atlanta. Clark Atlanta hasn't been this good in years. For them to have this kind of start and to be winning some games decisively, but to have this comeback win is absolutely beautiful. They were 7-28 going out of this first quarter. Then after that, they scored a couple more points, and then they were 14-34. They completely shut out Bethune-Cookman in the fourth quarter. Didn't allow them to score at all. They allowed no touchdowns. They allowed no field goals. And then you're like, okay, we're not going to go for the touchdown, which I think in most cases, I have to give kudos to the coach. Most coaches will want to go for the touchdown if they're trying to dominate a team. But you have a game so close like this. You have a game that you really just want to win. I think kicking that field goal, no matter how far it was one of the smartest decisions that I've seen this year by a coach when it comes to how we win a game and what I need to do for my players so that way I can keep going and make it to a championship. So to me, kicking that field goal, despite what anybody has said about not going for the touchdown, was the smartest thing that coach could have done. Then you make it with a freshman kicker. Like, that's what, like, this is going to be etched in Clark's wall, like it's going into the newspaper that they wrote on Monday, because this is a miracle. This is a Cinderella story. This is a Cinderella team. And now we're looking at maybe Clark can go the distance. Maybe Clark can do it this year and start turning around their football program. Because Clark they weren't bad. They had good years, and then now they're falling to a place where they can redeem those glory years. And I'm proud of them. I'm glad that they won this game. I don't know what the future looks like for Bethune-Cookman. This is their third season, starting more than 0-2 in the first couple games that they've had. And now you're looking at probably going into next season. Well, the end of this season maybe being, you might have a chance to be 2-6 again. I find that unlikely, and maybe you go 1-7. And so now we're thinking about coaching changes. What can we do to turn around Bethune-Cookman's luck right now? Because it's not looking good for this team, who isn't a Benedict, like you say, who isn't a Fort Valley, who isn't a Virginia Union, who isn't any of these dominated D2 schools, to go and have a comeback win against. I think this is more embarrassing to me, than to be blown out. You have a school that doesn't have a great track record of football come back and beat you by a field goal with a freshman kicker. Some reevaluating has to be done.
Yeah, and I just think that this just gives more credence to me about Division II versus Division I. Like I said, I understand the scholarship allotment. I totally get that when it comes to talent. But I just believe that coaching matters. I believe that scheme matters. I believe that game plan matters. And I believe, and we saw this with how they were down 34-14, then they came back and won 38-37, is that adjustments matter. Because that's something that I know in basketball, like they'll get on Doc Rivers about, like, oh, Doc Rivers doesn't adjust. But there are levels of coaching. There's motivational coaches, there's scheme coaches, there are coaches that sort of do both. There's even adjustment coaches that, hey, like one thing they can do well is they see what you do and then they adjust. And that is really in all sports. But I just think that Coach Keaton, just how he gets the best out of his talent. And I think that is the story, because I think that a lot of folks are just mystified by, oh, this D2 team beat Bethune-Cookman. A good team beat Bethune-Cookman, and Bethune-Cookman has struggled against good to great teams, no matter what classification they are. And I think that ultimately, and I have to say this, that goes to coaching. And I think Coach Raymond Woody Jr., who is the coach of Bethune-Cookman, he needs to figure something out. But I don't know how. He's in the SWAC East. You still got to play FAMU to end the year. You got to play at Alabama A&M that wants to compete. You have to play Jackson State. You even have to play Alabama State. Well, we know at least the defense will show up. So, I mean, I don't know where up is for. I mean, yes, you play Mississippi Valley, okay? Maybe that's your win. But I don't know what's up for them. I honestly really don't. And I don't know if Coach Woody, and it might be unfair, but I don't know if Coach Woody makes it out, because I think that this game gets them fired, because we know how people feel about Division II football. We know that. They don't care about Teddy Keaton. They don't care how great of a coach he is. They don't care about David Wright and the fact that David Wright is a prolific thrower of the ball. They don't care about that. They don't care about storylines. They don't care that Clark Atlanta beat Fort Valley. They don't care about none of that. They don't care about Clark Atlanta and Dr. French, who was at Miles College when Miles College was winning SIAC championships. They don't care he's at Clark Atlanta and he says we're going to invest in the football program. They don't care about that. All they see is, oh, what conference is Clark Atlanta in? Oh, Division II? Easy dub, moving on. So the fact that you didn't win that game and that's all they think about, this game might be the reason why at the end of the year, you'll read on clutchpoints.com/HBCU, Raymond Woody has been relieved of his position. And they're doing a national search for a new coach. This game here. Because what was Bethune Cookman a few years ago? Bethune Cookman was beating down everybody except A&T. That was the only team that really weren't beating down. And then even when they played A&T 2017, played them close. Had them scared 2017. Remember A&T, they were undefeated that year. Went to Celebration Bowl and won. Bethune Cookman had them scared a little bit. Like, wait a minute. Is Bethune Cookman going to beat them? Was dominating FAMU, their rival. They had different coaching back then. I think that Bethune Cookman can be good. I think they could compete if they have the right coach in place. I don't think it's the talent. I really don't. I think it is the coaching. And I think this is something across football, just last thing, is discipline. Because Clark Atlanta should not have been in position to win that game. But Bethune Cookman, and I think that was Coach Woody's son, because Coach Woody's son actually plays for Bethune Cookman. His son got a tackle, was taunting, they threw that flag, and that brought him up, automatic first down, that brought him up, and they were in position for a field goal. Discipline. You gotta be disciplined because we wouldn't be talking about this game if you didn't get that penalty. Gotta have discipline. But I personally think, and this is what we say in sports, that starts with the coach. And I think that was his son. So that's all I'm saying. I don't know where Coach Woody goes from here. He gotta beat one of Jackson State or FAMU to save his job. And I don't think he's gonna do that. He got to be one of Jackson State or FAMU. Maybe Alabama A&M. Maybe, I don't know. But you got to knock off one of the big dogs for you to keep your job, for me to believe in you, because we might forgive you, because if Clark Atlanta end up in the SIAC championship and they end up being good, it might be like, all right, they just got you. But nah, this year two, this is your recruiting class, and you brought in Rick Ross' son, you brought in Big Boy's son, you brought in your son, okay? Nah, you got to prove something to us. But that's just what I think, Arielle, honestly.
I mean, you're absolutely right. Even if they were to be Alabama A&M and Alabama State, you have to still knock off somebody that's really supposed to be above your level, which is going to be a Jackson State, or it has to be FAMU. And we all know FAMU ain't looking likely right now. So maybe Jackson State, after losing to Grambling, that game was surprising to me as well. Something just broke down for them at Jackson State. But it's a lot of coaches right now whose job is on the line. And sometimes it gets like that when you don't have a productive team. So A&T needs to see where they're going after this game. And especially Bethune-Cookman needs to see if they're finna have a losing season. Because what's about to happen, if they don't fire this coach, it's going to be a lot of transfers going on. And nobody wants to working with a completely new team. If they're not veterans or if they're not coming out of their freshman year, if you're getting sophomores and juniors, you may be okay. But if you're just getting new freshmen, you could be looking at the same season that you just got out of. So this is dangerous territory for both of those teams right now.
Yes, and I want to actually correct the record here. So I got mixed up. So it wasn't his son that got the penalty. So what happened was 21 seconds left. David Wright went no huddle. He threw a deep pass, and then Raymond Woody III, who was his son, got the ball broken up. Now, he did taunt. He actually did taunt, but they didn't call it for that. So the unsportsmanlike conduct was actually on Johnny Harris, from what I'm seeing. Now this might be wrong, but because I thought it was on Raymond Woody, but I'm going through on this one. But the unsportsmanlike conduct was 15 yards, and that took Clark Atlanta to their 41 to Bethune-Cookman's 44-yard line. So, like, that really changed things. That was 21 seconds left in the game, and then David Wright completed the short pass, 6 yards, and they got into the 38 for Bethune-Cookman, and then David Wright, he tried to go for another pass to get him closer, but then it was like, hey, it's 3 seconds left. we're going to go for the field goal. That's what got them in place to hit that 55-yard field goal, Cabrera. So that just goes to discipline. So Bethune Cookman had a chance to win that game, and I like some things that I saw, but they got to figure something out because it honestly is not looking good.